Okay, I'm using the Cindy Wood loom that's 15 pegs and a half gauge, and I'm using Lion's brand thick and Jiffy Thick and Quick and solids, and this is like an emerald green, and it's super chunky. And so what I've gone in and I've done is I've done an E-wrap cast on, and I'm doing this circularly, and I've E-wrapped 2 rows. So we're starting with the body on this dinosaur because that's the most complex spot, and I'm going to try to keep this as little parts to sew together as possible. So we're going to actually attach the legs. We're going to do rows that incorporate the legs in with the rest of the body. And as my child brings me my example, and I'm going to make it even simpler than this, but this isn't entirely one piece, but yeah, I'm going to attach the legs like this, and you'll have seen that on my sheep, and you'll have seen it on my pig design, creating the legs right attached with it. But instead of doing a hump right here, we're going to smooth out the back more, and so we're going to do a straight tube. And when I go in to attach the neck, which I'm going to do a little differently than I did here, this will gather down and it'll create the slope that you're looking for. So I'm trying to simplify this pattern as best I can because this was more complicated. So let's start off by going in and doing our first set of legs. And what you want to do is you want to count 4 pegs over. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to do short rows. We're going to do 15 short rows on these 4 pegs. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3. And just keep going back and forth for a total of 15 rows, and then we will progress on from there. Let's go ahead and pause the video and continue doing the short rows until you have 15 total short rows. And you should end up on this side. Okay, now we've completed our 15 rows, and you'll see it there. You'll see that loop there. And what you want to do, and I'm going to tell you why I'm doing this, and it's because when you go to sew it on, if you don't do this, then you'll find that you'll have maybe more of a hole. I find it makes it easier when sewing up the legs. So go ahead and shove that leg down in there. And then what you want to do, I don't know if you can see this, is you go to that previous peg, and there's that loop. Well, you want to follow that loop. You want to follow that loop from there to here. And you want to go in and you want to pick up that loop and put it on your starting peg like that. Then you'll want to come over here and make sure the yarn is in front so it doesn't get tangled up in this. And then you want to go in and do the same thing over here as find your original loop. So there is your next peg, and so here is your loop. So you see the line, and there is your original loop. And I'm going to pick that one up and put it back on the outer edge. And I'm not picking up any of the other ones, and the reason being is you'll need the opening to be able to stuff them. Now, if this is looking like it's going to give you too much trouble, you can do the connector and put it on. You're just wanting to get that connection in there so that it's easier for you to sew together later. And so leave it like that. Now, the next thing you want to do is take your next 4 pegs, 1, 2, 3, 4, and do just like we just did for this leg. So you want to do 15 short rows and then bring your outer original loops back onto the pegs. So 1, 2, 3. So keep going back and forth until you have 15 total rows, and then we will go from there. So go ahead and pause your video and complete your other leg, and I'll show you what's next after that. So I've just completed my 15 rows, and I'm going to be hunting for that original loop. So go to your previous peg. As you can see, the one with the double loop, go to the previous one, and then you're going to pull that original loop back up and over. Back up and over. Like that. Okay, and then you're going to go over here, and there is your last, there is your previous peg there, as you can see, your next one over. Follow that line over, and there is your loop to pick up and put back on. Once you have it, I would go ahead and suggest shoving that leg back in there and finish pulling that up. Make sure you put it on the 4th one over from that one. So there's that, and goes the 4th one over. At this point, go ahead and you'll want to finish the row. Let's go ahead and E-wrap the row. Okay. At this point, you're going to E-wrap around 3 rows. Okay. So you're going to E-wrap around for 3 rows. And when you E-wrap around on those pegs that have the 2, toss both loops over. So every one of those that have the 2 loops, toss both loops over to get back to 1. So go ahead and do 3 rows of E-wrap, and then what you'll do is you'll repeat the legs again, just like we just did. So 3 rows, repeat the legs, and then 3 more rows of E-wrap, and then we'll go from there. Okay, what you should have, as you can see, there are your first legs. There's your second group of legs, and 3 rows in between. And so you'll know that this is your opening and this is your body. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start decreasing to work our tail in. And so what you want to do is you want to go 4 in and stop. 1, 2, 3, 4. Toss the loops over. Okay. Consider this your new starting point, because this is like right between the legs. and we're going to start separating and decreasing and going back this direction. So what you want to do is you want to E-wrap all the way around to the other side. Okay. Okay, now that we've done one row like that, what you're going to do is you're going to take the fourth one in, which is right here. You're going to pick it up. You're going to move it over one. You're going to pick this other one up, move it over one. You've now just decreased by 2. Now go back the direction you came. And toss your bottom loops over. Then you're going to take the one on this side, lift it up, move it over. Okay. And you're going to take the one on this side and move it over. And then you go back and E-wrap all the pegs. And what you're going to do is you're going to keep decreasing by 1 on each side until you are down to 5 pegs with a single loop on them. So you're going to continue this decrease until you're down to 5 loops left. So you'll want to go ahead and pause the video and keep decreasing on each side until you're down to 5 loops. Okay, at this point we're down to 5 loops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to E-wrap a row after I've decreased down to 5. Okay. Then I'm going to decrease again down to 3. Then I'm going to E-wrap for 3 rows. There's 1, 2, 3. And at this point, I'm going to take this loop, put it on the next one, toss the bottom loop over, wrap it, take that, put it on the next peg, toss the bottom loop over, and wrap it. Cut you a long strand. through. So this is what you should have. You see your tail. It'll naturally have a curve when you go in to sew it up. And then you'll want to sew your legs up. Right through there. And then I would suggest stuffing the body that way. Now, what I'm going to do is start on my head. So you want to go ahead and sew your legs up and your tail and stuff your body, and we'll prep for our neck and our head. And we're going to do all the pegs. And instead of going circularly, we're going to do flat. So we're going to stop here and then go back the direction we came. Okay. At this point, what you want to do is you will want to E-wrap. Okay, what you'll want to do is E-wrap for 7 rows. So you'll want to go ahead and you'll want to pause the video and you'll want to E-wrap 7 rows. And we will go from there. Okay, I've done 7 rows. And you can see it looks like a tube, but when it comes apart it'll be more round. Okay. So at this point we want to create a snout area and or nose area, and so we're going to do one of my typical techniques, my internal decrease. So I'm going to go ahead and take every other loop and move it over to the next peg. Okay. I'm kind of going back over this direction and do the opposite side. Okay. And you should have basically one that isn't decreased. At this point, what you want to do is you want to E-wrap all the pegs with loops. Now, I haven't made mention of it. Go ahead and toss both loops over on each peg. But you can do this on the 12 peg loom. And if you do the internal decrease on the 12 peg loom, it'll end up even. You won't have a single peg that's in there. All of them will have 2. And the only note to make is that you would still do flat and you'd still use all your pegs on the head, and you're still internally decreasing down to half, so keep that in mind. So after I do that, I'm going to bring all my loops together. Now the note with the body is, instead of doing 4 pegs, you'll do 3 pegs per leg on flat rows. Keep the amount of rows the same. You can still do 15 rows, but what you're doing is going down to 3 pegs for 15 rows rather than 4, because you're working with less pegs. And you'll want to do the same thing, find the marker right between the 2 legs, and then start decreasing back from there. Okay, now we're going to tighten our loops so that we have a nice distinct shape. You'll do the same number of rows in between your legs and after and everything, so all the rows are the same. The only thing that's really different is the number of pegs you use to create a leg, and when you get to the tail, stop at 6. Let's say we stopped here at 5. When you get to the tail, actually stop at 4, E-wrap 2 rows, decrease again, E-wrap 3 rows of 2, and then cast off. And that should give you a similar tail. So you do everything similar to this. It's just you're working on even rows rather than odd, and you're just taking out 1 peg for the legs. So it's really not bad to translate this into the 12 peg. I will make sure I have a written pattern out for the 12 peg so that helps you out. Okay, at this point we're going to do 3 rows and then cast off. So here's row 1. And this will be a little snug at first, taking the off because you just tighten those loops. But it should really do a nice snout area. Okay. And this is 2. Go ahead and cast off any way you choose. Just do a regular cast off, whichever way you prefer, and you're done with the head. The only thing you might want to do is go ahead and close off the back of the head, and when you close up the nose, you'll do it like the duck beak. You'll have these connected flat. And I'll kind of show you how that looks. So go ahead and pause the video and cast off and close the back of your head up, and I'll show you how to sew it up, and then we'll do the neck, which will be the last part. Okay, what you want to do is you've cast it off, and then what you want to do is connect your ends. So stick your needle through and you've connected your ends. Now you should have like a little circle connection. Now you're going to fold this in half and make sure that this is sitting up in the center. Then what you're going to do is you're going to send the needle up through there, and then you're going to connect your ends here. on this side, which should only take one time. Then what I like to do is send it through the side bit. Bring it back up where you came. Then put a seam closing up the other side. Send through the side. Then I'm going to close up the bottom. And I'm going to sew up to that indentation right there. I'm going to sew up to there. Send it through. And send it through again. Okay. And I don't ever like to cut the end. You can always take this and shove it up in that snout area. And it actually fills it up quite nicely. You usually don't have to add in a whole lot of fluff in that snout area when you have your extra yarn to just shove up in there. And then you want to just close off the back of your head, and you should have, which is just closing that section right there. And then you should have an opening right here to stuff, and then you'll attach your neck to it. At this point, we're going to start on our neck area. And I'm going to do an E-wrap cast on. And I'm going to do 8 pegs. Okay, let me make sure I calculated 8. Okay, there's 8. Okay. And then I'm going to go and do four rows. Back and forth. Let's go ahead and pause the video and complete those rows, and then I will show you the next step. Okay, after you've completed 4 rows, we're wanting to be able to add a curve, which means basically doing something very similar to a heel. So what you're going to do is you're going to E-wrap all the way over until you hit just before the last peg. So there's your last peg. And you're going to stop there. Go ahead and toss all your loops over. Okay. Then you're going to wrap and turn and E-wrap all the way over until just before the last peg. There's your last peg, so stop just before it. Toss all your loops over, except for that last one, which is a wrap and turn. Okay, then you're going to wrap and turn, and then E-wrap till just before the last wrap and turn, which means there should be a single peg with 1 loop. Toss your bottom loops over. Then you're going to do a wrap and turn. E-wrap till just before the last wrap and turn. There's your last wrap and turn. There's your single loop. Toss the bottom loops over. Wrap and turn, and E-wrap all the way over. Here's your last wrap and turn, E-wrap all the way over. Okay, you should have 2 wrap and turns on each side. Now, what we want to do is start adding those wrap and turns back in. So, I'm going to E-wrap over one more. Toss those loops over. Then I'm going to E-wrap it again and wrap all the way back to the other E-wrap. I mean the wrap and turn right there. Go ahead and toss both loops over. And you should have 1 wrap and turn here and 1 wrap and turn here. Start with the peg you finished with. E-wrap all the way over and add in the wrap and turn on this side, which is your last one. Toss all the loops over. And that should leave you with 1 wrap and turn left, which is over here. So go ahead and E-wrap all the way over. And that adds in your last wrap and turn. At this point, you're going to E-wrap 7 rows and then cast off. So we've done our 1 curved section. As you can see, it's very curved here. So now you want to just go ahead and E-wrap for 7 rows and then cast off, and then we'll go from there. So pause the video to do that. Okay, once you've stuffed your body, you're going to sew your neck on, and you're going to know your 4 row with your 7 row. So you want to find your 4 row, which was your original cast on, and what you're going to do is sew it from one leg to the other leg. And yes, that means that this is wide up, and we're going to gather this, and that's going to allow the hump. So go ahead and sew this around, then gather that, and then start sewing from the base of the neck up. Then you'll stuff the neck. After that, you're going to sew the head on. So I'm going to show you the neck area, and then I'm going to leave you to actually sew up the rest. And then what you're going to do is send the needle through each loop that you see from the original cast on. gather it in like that, as tight as you can, and then you can tie that off. I like to shove that in. At this point, you'll want to sew the neck, stuff it, and then sew your head on. And then you should have your dinosaur. You'll just need to glue on or sew on a couple of buttons for eyes on the side of the head at the base of the snout, and then you're done. That's how you make a dinosaur.